Going live. You are now live. We are now live. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello, Mr. Taylor. All right. Wait, we got 4 viewers already. That's good. So yes, the first 2 videos we're watching in today's stream, they were suggestions. We got some suggestions this time. So if anyone wants to bring in any other suggestions, definitely do it. I thought I had a thought, but no, I did not. Hey, that rhymed accidentally. Okay, so I'm just checking to make sure everything will be heard today, as I usually goof something up. Let's see. I think we'll be okay here. All right, Chad, hello. Mr. Chad, we're going to get to yours second, because that's just how the list turned out. Mr. Taylor's was turned in first. So we're going to watch that one. It's a shorter one. So let's see. All right. The first video of the day of the stream. Let's see. Am I looking at this at the right? No. Hang on. Stream and reaction thing. Nope, this is the right spot. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at by Tom Hess, and I've heard many negative things about Mr. Hess. Levi Clay, he brought all kinds of crazy ass things to light about Tom Hess, but so I don't know what this is going to be like. Of course, I'm already coming into this one questioning things, but as always, anytime I watch one of these, I do not do it with the purpose of tearing anything down. Is it coattail writing? Absolutely. But hey, let's see what we can learn. Let's see if I agree with Mr. Hess. And yeah, here we go. This is called Increase Your Guitar Speed Without Moving Your Hands Faster. So I don't know how the hell that's going to work, but I suppose we're about to find out. And of course, if no one can hear the sound, please let me know. Okay, I have that muted. I'm gonna adjust the volume here a bit. One sec. All right, there we go. Back to the start.
First 4 measures only.
Okay.
All right, that's fine up to there. Can you do all of that while just holding the strings down?
No,
Okay, why not?
I don't know it by my head. So I have to follow my lead.
Oh, we don't know it. Okay, so let's think about that. You can play it as long as this hand tells your brain what this hand needs to be doing. That right there is your problem.
Okay.
Because this hand doesn't really know what it's doing. It has to be told, instructed by the left hand. That takes time. Your brain is sending signals to this hand. Okay, left hand, do your thing. And it knows its parts. If I told you to go like this and just finger all the chords, you could probably do it. And I bet you could probably do it up to full speed at 140. Okay? So your brain's already telling this guy what to do. He can do his job. But then your brain then has to perceive what's actually happening. So it's sending the signal to do it, and then it has to analyze it because it needs that information to then instruct this hand what it has to do.
Yeah.
Then it does its thing, and then you're trying to analyze that. Do you realize how much processing power that takes for all that stuff to happen?
I don't. Do you?
A lot.
Oh! It's a lot.
What if we could cut out most of that in the process,
Okay.
where the brain just tells, it sends out two simultaneous signals. All right, dude, you do this and you do that. And there's no translation. It's like you're speaking English over here, and then it says its words, and it needs to translate back into some other language, like Japanese or something. And then this hand is being talked to in Japanese, and then it has to do its job back in English. It's just too much.
Yeah.
All right? So you want two signals. You do this, go. And when you get that happening in your brain, going to 140 won't be a big deal anymore, because you've got the speed. Your left hand is good enough, and I can see by how difficult things are you're playing in your right hand that you've got the chops in your right hand.
Okay.
You're losing it in your brain. It's
Yeah.
not. You're not getting lost in your hands. You're overloading your mind.
I guess it seems like I should interject with something here. It's a Dr. Phil of guitar. Okay, are we gonna? Now I'm wondering, like, all right, when are we gonna get to this? Increase your speed without moving your hands faster. So far, oh boy, this is where I'm gonna upset people. I don't know. It just seems like so what at this point? Like, get to the fucking point.
So, for you to get this faster and in sync, I think what you need to do is cover this up, learn the part right hand only, so that this hand learns to do what it needs to do without any further instruction or analysis from the brain listening or thinking about this. Let's try just the first measure or two, just the right hand.
Just watching what I play. Okay.
Now here's a little trick to help this process go faster.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking about the patterns, because I'm guessing right now you're trying to visualize the pattern that your left hand would do if it was playing, but it's not playing. So you're still, even though you're not playing with the left hand,
Thinking.
your brain is going through the exact same process all over again, and it's not getting any easier. Because even though it's not moving,
Well, doesn't the guy have to start somewhere? So perhaps he could think about it, left hand being the leader, and then he realizes what his right hand is supposed to be doing, and then he could put the focus on the right hand, if you want to approach it this way. All right, well, let's keep going. Let's see what he says.
and even though we're not hearing the sounds, all the work of your brain is still identical. Nothing's actually changed except there's no sound coming out.
Yeah.
So, you need to imagine the sound as you're instructing this hand what to do. Instead of thinking about, okay, this pattern, and then this finger moves here, and then I go to this string, so I got to hit that guy. All that's got to go. And you've got to imagine the sound. So right now, if I told you to just put your hands in position for whatever the chords are, whatever these lines are, you can put your hand in position and not play, and you could actually imagine what it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Try that. Don't pick anything. Just put your hand in position. Stop. Hold on. Just put your hand there and imagine what it sounds like. Go ahead and do that. Just imagine it. Can you hear it in your head as you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not hearing anything coming out of your guitar. So if you've already learned to associate the actual sound with what this hand has been instructed to do. That's awesome. We need that to happen over here.
Okay.
When that happens over here, you've got it. you've bypassed all the garbage translation that's currently going on in your head, and you'll be able to play this much faster, and it will be very simple for you to do.
Okay.
This is not a technique problem, it's not a speed problem, it's a mental processing problem. But you can easily overcome it as you go through the motions, hear it in your head. Go real slow if you need to, but hear the sounds as you instruct the right hand what to pick. Let's go super slow, like very slow, and try and just right hand only. And I want you to really try to hear it. And if you can't hear it, you might need to actually sing it to yourself.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm not going to make you sing in front of everybody else here, but when you're home, sing it as you instruct the right hand to articulate the strings. Are you able to hear all that, or do we need to slow this down? That's pretty
Slow this
quick.
down, yeah.
Yeah, slow it down until you can really hear it. Are you singing it to yourself in your head?
Yeah.
All those notes, can you really hear all of them?
Yeah.
Good, awesome. Then continue to go. Hold on. I was talking, so I was distracting you from hearing what you needed to hear.
Well, he just said continue to go. The guy continued to go, and then he said, well, hold on. Well, which is it? I'm not going to have much for this video. I mean, I don't see the problem with the dude just having both hands going at the same time. The picking pattern's so freaking simple looking anyway. It's like, okay, is he really having trouble with that? What is the problem he was having with it in the first place? Another thing is, like, could you imagine actually doing this for a more shreddy type thing? Like picking just a few notes on each string, like just basically like open string kind of picking all over the place. Like, could you imagine doing that? I don't think that would work in the slightest. Like, having both hands sync up, to me, makes it much easier than trying to think like, okay, I have to separate everything here, because he's talking about having both things come together. Well, it seems more complicated doing it this way, because then you got to sit there and mentally separate everything instead of having it all be at one at the same damn time. So far, I don't know. Doesn't seem too helpful right now. But I mean, if you just need to practice the picking pattern itself because your right hand's sucking at it, fine. But if you got the picking pattern, it seems like an unnecessary step. YouTube comment, John Selena, hello. I think it's interesting to think about separating the right and left hands, but I'm not sure anything of substance was really said there. Yeah, like if you need to, fine, and there's ways to do it, but I mean, I just don't find it to be very practical unless if you really just have to focus on picking because you're unaware, like your picking hand just can't find the strings, then that's fine. Well, once your picking hand knows kind of where to go, yeah, sync it both up. This feels like an unnecessary step, but you know, what do I know? This guy's way more successful than me. And he's got more hair on his chin than I do on my head. What does that have to do with anything? I don't know. I'm just trying to make some kind of humor happen here. Alright, failed attempt. Whoops, wrong click. There we go. Continuing.
So wait for me to stop talking and then really hum those things out, either out loud or at least to yourself.
Okay.
Go. Are you hearing the notes in your head?
Yeah.
All of them, correctly, accurately? You're okay, good. Good. That's how I think you should practice this.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I think when you do, you'll find that getting the speed up will come a lot faster. Because you've got the chops.
Yeah.
We just got to free up your mind from the burden of all the stuff it's currently thinking of. Okay? And it'll go much faster.
Okay.
All right? Awesome. Great job, man.
All right. Well, I don't have much. I have nothing to say. I'm sorry. It's like I don't find that helpful. But that's me. Don't find it helpful. I think it's an unnecessary step. If anything, it's like seems more like cluttering your mind and making shit harder than it needs to be. Like, if you can actually hear all the notes in your brain like that, fine. But that's pretty rare. Most people aren't going to be able to do that, but that's, why we have I don't know. I just think the instrument would make it so much easier. Just do it with the instrument itself. If you got a picking pattern for your, just a picking pattern you're having a hard time with, and that's what's tripping you up, then sure, just focus on the picking pattern itself. But if you also need to have the left hand synced up, or both the right and left hand synced up for what you're trying to play, just do it both at the same time, unless it's the one or the other is really causing that much of an extra problem. Because if it's not causing much of an extra problem, then forget it. Like, oh, it's a very clickbaity title. Increase your guitar speed without moving your hands faster. Like, okay. Anyway, now we're going to get to the next video. This one is called How to Turn a Metal Riff into a Song. So this one, again, was a request or submission to check out. As always, every time I watch these things, it's not with the intent of tearing anything down. You might be questioning, like, well, didn't you just tear down Tom Hess? Like, I definitely disagreed with it. So, yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. It wasn't my intention. That's just my honest opinion on it. Oh, well. If that makes me an asshole, so be it. I've been called worse. I've been called better. So, Jason Stallworth, I believe is this guy's name. And I know I don't know if he still does, but I know I followed him on Instagram. I think I still do. I don't know why I wouldn't. But I've seen him. And I actually got some of his other stuff queued up for some of these reaction videos where he has like some thrash riffs and whatnot that he's teaching. So I'm just going to try those out, see what I think of them. So anyway, here we go. How to turn a metal riff into a song, 7 simple steps. So I guess we're going to see, do I agree with them? Do we going to learn some new ideas here? Let's find out.
Really awesome metal. How many times have you come up with this truly awesome metal riff, whether it be on guitar or keyboard or even bass, but you get frustrated because you can't seem to make it into a song? Well, in this video, we're gonna give you 7 steps to take to make that riff into a complete song. Now, we're going to go through these 7 steps together, so I'm going to break out the guitar. We'll do half whiteboard because I've got some visuals I want to share with you here that I think they're really going to help you break through and make those riffs into full songs. But I'm also going to share the example on guitar as we go through these 7 steps. Now, make sure you hang around to the end of the video because we actually have a free guide that we want to give to you. Actually, if you want to grab that now, there is a link in the description of this video. If you want to pause and grab that real quick, or if you want to continue watching the video, I'll remind you again at the end. The first step in this process is to establish the nature of your riff. So of course, to do that, to go through these steps together, I need to come up with a riff. So let me go grab my guitar. Alright, so we've got a basic metal riff to work with here, and I want to keep things simple for the sake of this video. And again, I want you to go through this process with your own riff. Hey, feel free to do that as we're going through these steps here. Feel free to break out your guitar or whatever you wrote the riff on and go through this process with me. So I want you to think about the nature of your riff. So what are some of the feelings that you get when you're playing this riff? What are some of the emotions that you're feeling? So let's think about this for a minute. We're playing metal, so is it one of those riffs that gives you that sense of aggression? Well, let's write these down. I want you to write these down as well, like with your own riffs. So I want you to break out, how to do a whiteboard. You can just do it on a notepad, but what feelings does your riff give you? Is it aggressive? maybe it gives you a sense of melody. Maybe the riff is just very melodic and you just get that sense of melody. It's not really an emotion, but I want you to write these things down anyway. What comes to mind when you play this riff? Maybe it's a sense of sadness. It's like doom metal, you know? Maybe it's sad. Maybe it's kind of a depressing type riff. Maybe the riff gives you a sense of empowerment, right? It makes you feel empowered. Okay, so these are just a few examples of many emotions and feelings that you may get as you're playing this riff. So I want you to think about these when you're playing your riff. Think about them and then write these down before we go to the next step. Step 2, we want to establish the key that the riff is in, the main key. What key is your riff?
All right, establishing the key. I'm curious, like, okay, well, what if the riff you wrote isn't really in a key? What if the riff that you come up with is in multiple keys, or is really like a chromatic scale kind of thing, because it's like really, really atonal? Yes, you can be atonal and still be in a key, but there's a lot of the stuff I write, I'm not focused on what key it's in. And if you have heard my stuff, it's basically just one thing going to the next all the time. So I'd imagine it would be very off-putting to a lot of people. However, taking or considering that he's just giving some steps that you can take, I think it's a fair thing right there. So establishing what key your riff is in can be a helpful thing, but I don't feel it is a necessary thing in terms of writing, because a lot of stuff I listen to does not stay in a specific key. It goes all over the place. Maybe if you feel aggression, the key of aggression. The key of dad jokes.
In. And this is a pretty simple part here, and I'll give you two things to think about here. A lot of times it might be the note that you start that riff with. More than often that will sometimes determine the key that you're going to be playing the riff in. If it's not that, the second thing to look at is the note that you end on. That could very well be the key that riff is in as well, but that should be pretty easy for you to do. Just establish the key, and of course in this case, again, we're keeping things simple here. The riff I played for you earlier just happens to be in the key of E minor, okay? And I'm in standard tuning doing this video here with you, going through these steps. So yeah, establish the key that your riff is in, because that's going to take us into the next about this for a minute. This video, and again, I want you to things that you get when you're playing this riff. What are some of the emotions, sense of a riff? Is
Where the
a
hell is
of
he
this
playing
video.
it?
Do you actually? The first step in this process is to establish the nature of your riff. So of course, to do that, to go through these steps together, I need to come up with a riff. So let me go grab my guitar. All right, so we.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
A pretty riff with. More than often, that will sometimes determine the key that you're going to be playing the riff in. If it's not that, the second thing to look at is the note that you end on. That could very well be the key that riff is in as well, but that should be pretty easy for you to do. Just establish the key, and of course, in this case, again, we're keeping things simple here. The riff I played for you earlier just happens to be in the key of E minor, okay? And I'm in standard tuning doing this video here with you, going through these steps. So yeah, establish the key that your riff is in, because that's going to take us into the next step. The next step is to determine what are the notes in the key that your riff is in. Now remember, our riff here is in the key of E minor. Remember, we're keeping things simple. E minor, we're in standard tuning. So what are the notes in the key of E minor? Now I'm going to write these out real quick, but this is not something that you have to worry about so much. Like, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, I don't know what this is, so now I've got to dive super deep into music theory, which that's not a bad thing. That can only help you if you decide to go that route. But even if you're not up to speed on music theory, of course, you're learning some by default here, it's pretty easy to establish this. And one of the ways you can do that is actually by going to the blog post. I have a link to a Metal Mastermind blog post in the video description here. And we'll have a post about what we're teaching here, and you'll see step 3. I'll have the common keys in that blog post, and you'll see the notes in each key, so feel free to use that. So E minor, of course, your notes are E. Now if you're playing chords, that would be E minor, right? Your next note is going to be an F sharp, right? If you're playing chords, that would actually be an F sharp minor. Okay. Next, you've got a G, G major.
No. F sharp minor is not in the key of E minor. That would be F sharp diminished, because an F sharp minor contains the notes F sharp, A, C sharp. C sharp is not in the key of E minor, and he will, I'm assuming, will correctly write out the notes. F sharp, A, and C is the triad that happens. F sharp diminished is the chord that happens, not F sharp minor. Could you play an F sharp minor? Well, that's a wrong chord. It's just supposed to play major. Yeah, you can. Guess you could think of it as like F sharp minor being a substitute or replacement for the F sharp diminished. The F sharp diminished will definitely have a harsher sound, but yeah, it's F sharp minor is not in the key of E minor.
After that, you have an A if you're playing chords. That would be an A minor. After that, you've got a B. If you're playing chords, that would be a B minor. Then you've got C, and then you've got D. And I almost ran out of room on the whiteboard here. I think you guys can see that there. So E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. It sounds like a normal alphabet. The magic here is you've got stuff to work with for that riff. But once you write this out, and some of you may already have this up here, you may have memorized the notes that are in that key, right? But once you have this, once you know this for the key that you're in, this gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options of a next note to go to or a chord to go to. Now you've got 7 times however many all these are together, so you've got an array of options here, just different things that you can do with this riff to continue on with this riff so you can build it into a song. And that's exactly what we're going to do in our next step. So we've got the key that the riff is in, and then we've got the notes here that make up the key of E minor in this case. So what I want you to do next, and this is where the fun begins, I want you just to pick 2. I would say 2 or 3, but let's just keep things simple. I want you to pick 2 notes, because any of these notes that you pick here, they're going to fit your riff because they're in that key, right? That's the whole purpose of this. I'm just going to randomly pick 2 notes here. I'm going to pick a G. We're going to do the G. And again, let's just keep things simple. I'm going to also pick, let's pick a D. I made a lot of D's in school, so we'll pick that one. I shouldn't have told you that. All right, so G and D. Now, I'm going to take the riff, right? I'm going to take our guitar riff in E minor that we wrote, and I'm going to play it with a G and a D. Now, I will also play the root note as well, so we're going to pick 3 notes. I said 2, but I'm going to throw in this E, okay? Now, remember, if you're playing full chords, this will be an E minor, right? The G and D would be major chords there. Of course, we're playing, if I play chords, it'll be power chords, so it's not really going to matter. So again, we're picking G and D, and of course, I'm also going to play the actual note of the key that we're in. So let's see what we can come up with. Now the next natural step would be to establish some sort of cadence for your song that you're writing here. And you will kind of do this in the prior step, you know, when I asked you to just pick, 2 to 3 notes to go with that riff that's, it's in that key there. As you're building this, as you're adding those notes, whether they be power chords or full chords, there's nothing that says you can't play full chords in metal music. Sometimes we do that. Or if it's just single note riffs that you're adding to that riff. Sometimes the verse or chorus of a song, it may be filled with just a single note pattern. That's okay too. There's no right or wrong way. But as you're going through this, I want you to think about the cadence. As you're adding those notes or those chords or those chords, I want you to also be developing a cadence for your song. And this is that melody. This is kind of what really gives life to the song. It's kind of what makes the riff turn into an actual song that people can like, oh wow, okay, that's cool. It's not just you jamming with some riff. It's a complete or semi-complete composition here that we're working towards, okay? So think about the cadence, and we kind of established that as I was adding the chords, but let me just kind of elaborate on this a little bit more, and I'll even add a drum track to this, because that's a good way to also establish the cadence to a song as well. If you record your music as you're writing it, which I highly recommend that you do, throw in like a drum machine or something like that. Most DAWs have some sort of loops in them, or if you've got something like Easy Drummer, throw some loops in there, or if you like to program drums, just do that for now. I'm not saying use programmed drums. If you were going to release the song, I would want you to hire a real drummer for that. But again, we're writing here, right? We're establishing this song, we're writing it. So this is a good way to come up with the cadence of the song. So let's just revisit that, and let me see if I can come up with a really clear cadence for this part of the song. All right, so as we revisited the cadence part there, right, that step, and this is why I don't want you to skip that step, we actually changed things a little bit. You could hear the difference between, after thinking about cadence, right, the difference between that, what we came up with, than what we had before when we were just adding those additional notes. So
I'm going to go back and listen to that regular speed. So one thing I would have liked to hear is him explaining what a cadence is. If you recall, a stream or two ago, or three, I like I said, I don't even know what the hell a cadence is. I hear the word all the time, but it basically just means an ending, a conclusion. Cadence is like, think of it as some kind of conclusion. And I think people incorrectly use cadence as if it was a rhythmic structure. Sometimes students will say, like, oh, is that the right cadence of something? It's like, yeah, that's not what the word means. So cadence is some kind of like conclusion, the way something resolves. So that would have been, I would have liked to have heard that, because I think that word is confusing for a good amount of people. And it was for me. And I've been doing this for over 20 years, so look at that.
Can come up with a really clear cadence for this part of the song.
Where did he do that earlier? Like right here?
The key that we're in. So let's see what we can come up with.
So now I'm even more confused as to what he means by cadence. So once again, that word, like, what do people mean when they say that? Well, when I looked it up, it was basically just a way of conclusion. But it seems like the way he's done it here, he just added rhythmic structure to it. So now I'm wondering, like, am I missing something? Am I wrong here? Is cadence not just conclusion? Is it also interchangeable with rhythmic structure? Because that's what it seems like he did. He threw in the chords that he wanted, and then he put on the drum track and had a more established rhythm to the thing. That's what it seems like the process was or is.
See if I can come up with a really clear cadence for this part of the song. All right, so as we revisited the cadence part there, right, that step, and this is why I don't want you to skip that step, we actually changed things a little bit. You can hear the difference between, after thinking about cadence, right, the difference between that, what we came up with, than what we had before when we're just adding those additional notes. So the next thing I want you to think about in your riff and the chords and the extra notes that you're now adding, because we're building a song now, I want you to think about what I like to call metal techniques. Now, this probably pertains mostly to guitar, and even if you're not the guitar player of the band watching this, I would want you to relay this to your guitar player as you're writing the song. And this is a good way to, one, just kind of make the song have more life and just kind of make it stand out a little bit more, so maybe it's not so plain. Nothing wrong with plain parts though. And what I mean by that is you might love the riff with just the C and the D with those power chords being held out for that part of the song. That's absolutely fine. I still want you to at least think about this, assess this part. Again, you may not do anything with it, but just think about it, okay? So what do I mean by metal techniques? And a lot of you guys know already, but I'm talking about things like when you're playing maybe some of those chords, do you want an additional section to have more palm muting? So that's one technique. It's a very common technique, okay? Oops, I said palm technique. I meant palm muting. Let's change that. Okay, palm muting. Do you want to add some of that really fast alternate picking, that 1, 2, 3, that galloping in there? And actually, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a really cool technique to add, especially if you're a guitarist. Do you want more galloping? Do you want to add power chord variations? Right? You may not want to play just the straight power chord. If you added power chords to the song like we did, you may want a variation of power chords, and actually I'll kind of add these two as examples as well. You may want a part where you have a power slide that you slide into a chord, something like that. So you could just think of any technique, and the list goes on, of course, any technique that you can add. Now again, you don't have to add anything to it, right? But I still want you to go through that step, to go through the process and just think about it before you move on to the next step, which we're about to get to. So real quick though, let's hear what this riff sounds like when we add some more techniques like galloping and a chord variation. We are at the 7th and final step of turning your riff into a complete song. So step number 7, what is it? Well, it's real simple. I want you to continue building your song by repeating steps 1 through 6. I want you to go back through everything that we've been through, but in a new light. Now, this could be another riff that you already have written. And I know if you're, well, whatever kind of instrument you play, you've probably got several riffs that you're working.
Well, I don't know. To me, this feels more like 6 simple steps of making your riff more interesting, not necessarily turning it into a song, because I mean, it's hard to tell people how to write a song anyway, and I don't like answering that question with people like, well, how am I supposed to make this song? It's like, dude, you just gotta hit stuff, start slapping notes around, start fiddling around, and see what you come up with. You can put parameters on things, and this way you have a guide, much like presented in Jason's video here. You can establish what key it's in and focus on a couple notes to make things more interesting, or just give yourself something to try, because when you just have like all the notes at your disposal and no structure whatsoever, it can be very daunting. So yeah, putting something in a specific key can be very helpful. Understanding how to do those power chord variations like he showed can also be very helpful. So that's where learning your music theory can very much come in handy. So this way, it's like you have all kinds of stuff ready to choose from, and like you don't really have to think too much about like figuring things out on the fly, or like having to experiment too much to find what sounds good. Because if you understand how the chords and scales and whatnot are all laid out in key, that takes a lot of the guesswork out. So definitely agree with him on learning your theory can be very, very helpful in your songwriting and just musical understanding, period. So very big fan of learning the theory. Would like it if he went into more detail as to what he considers cadence, because as I said earlier, when you look it up, it seems like it's just a way of concluding something, like a type of cadence, because there are like types of cadences using a specific chord progression that resolves what is being played. But it seems like he's referring to it as a more rhythmic idea. So again, I don't know if I've just misunderstood this thing. I definitely a possibility. I don't know everything. So if he's talking about just like rhythmic structure, okay. But as far as like turning it into a complete song by just repeating the other ones, it seems more like how to make more polished, defined riffs, which could turn into a song, but not necessarily becoming one. I think. And maybe he'll say this coming up. I might be jumping the gun here. But, like, if you really want to have a specific structure to something, to, like, just get used to writing things, you can do, like, a basic intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro kind of thing. You listen to songs that you really like, see how they have the song established. And that's something I want to do on like some of these streams here, is take a song and use it to build your own. Basically, how to steal your favorite stuff in order to learn how to write your own. So that's definitely going to happen. And you don't even have to be able to play the song that you like in order to make your own stuff. You're just taking the ideas from that song and using them. But anyway, let's continue on here. I swear to God, it feels like I'm having trouble breathing lately. What is wrong with me? Or maybe I'm just taking bigger breaths to make sure I enunciate things well.
Working with, and you want to build something, build onto those riffs. And this is a good way to do this, right? So you've got the one riff, we built that riff into a progression that could be the verse, chorus, could be the bridge, whatever you want it to be. So now we need to keep building parts of the song, the other parts of the song, and to do that, again, we just repeat steps 1 through 6. And that might be using another riff that you've already written, or it could be maybe it's not a riff. Maybe it's not a riff at all. Maybe you kind of eliminate the riff part and just think about the key that you want the next part of the song to be in. And here's the cool thing, it doesn't mean it has to remain in the same key. And actually, we'll talk about that on a future video. We'll talk about how to change keys in the middle of a song, because that's one of those things you can do to really just captivate the listener even more. But yeah, repeat steps 1 through 6, or if you don't want to use an actual riff, 2 through 6, establish the key that you want that next part of the song to be in, write out those notes, and then just start building on that, like add the notes to it, get that cadence, start working with the cadence, adding those techniques and so forth. And again, you can repeat these steps for every section of the song, for intro, verse, chorus, bridge, guitar solo part, whatever you want, the outro, and I encourage you to do that. So one last thing before we go here. First of all, please like this video if this helped. If you found this video to be valuable and to help you with your songwriting, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to Metal Mastermind. We're all about helping metal musicians like yourself and like me and all of us. So it's a cool community to be a part of. And I also told you I had something free for you. We actually have a free guide, a songwriting guide, called The 10 Secrets of Writing an Original Metal Song. So there is a link in the YouTube description for that. Now, if you already have that guide, we've also got a complete songwriting course. I'll have a link to that in the description as well. But if you don't have the guide yet, definitely download that first and go through that, because that's really going to help you kind of get over the hump when it comes to what we like to call songwriter's block and how to tie things together, and a lot of good concepts to just get your mind prepared for the songwriting process. So get that guide. Again, it's in the description of this YouTube video. And again, feel free to leave your comments on this video. Please let us know if this helped you, or if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer those. Like I said, we're just a community, a cool community of metal musicians, and we're here to serve you and help you. Guys, thanks so much for watching this. We'll see you on the next video.
All right. You have to get used to breathing in oxygen. It feels like the last Patreon video I made, when I was like editing the thing, I just noticed like, man, I seem to be taking deeper breaths more often. I was like, have I always done that? I don't know. If Lord Potato was on, she'd just say it's because I'm fat. Anyway, what am I doing here? I'm changing all kinds of stuff. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. Gotta advertise my shit. Yeah, Jason's stuff there. Fair. Good stuff when it comes to like polishing up riffs. Don't feel like it really tells you how to build an entire song from a riff. It's really just taking a riff and expanding on that riff, but I feel like more steps would be necessary in order to make it songwriting friendly. Sorry, I just saw a FedEx truck pull up, and I really don't feel like leaving the stream right now. But my lovely video editor, aka my wife, maybe she'll see that they're here. Anyway. So we got plenty of time. We're going to get to some more stuff here. And I've given more thought to how I want to do this whole live reaction thing, streaming thing. And I believe we're going to focus more on, like, I don't want to say controversial stuff, but things like that are very like do this technique or do this tip to have this thing happen. It's like, okay, like what thing? Or stuff like, this will save you years of things. In fact, one of the things I got ready to go is 5 picking tips to save years of guitar practice. So, we're going to be visiting our old friend Bernth. So I'm going to edit this description here. So let's see. The Bernth video. Just adding a link to this real quick. Opening it up. There's a lot of bass all of a sudden. All right, so there we go. I got the link added to the video description. And, all right, disclaimer time. Every time I watch one of these videos to respond or react to it, it is never with the intention to bring anyone down. I'm not trying to tear anything down. We're just seeing, do we agree? Do I have anything to add to it? Is it coattail writing? Absolutely. But hey, it got you to watch, didn't it? So, Bernth, great guitar player, very skilled. He definitely can play plenty more than I can on certain things. So, you know, I am not going to be claiming I am better than him. Never will, never have. So let's see here. He has a video called 5 Picking Tips to Save Years of Guitar Practice. Let's see, do we agree?
Welcome back to the channel, Earthling.
Okay, no, I won't do the entire video like that because this is serious. You know what I'm talking about. You often feel like you can't control the amount of notes you're playing with alternate picking. Your wrist feels extremely stiff and your pick gets stuck between the strings constantly, causing tons of unwanted noise. You simply can't break through your personal BPM speed limits, and your pick, grip and overall technique feels totally uncontrolled and unreliable, although you tried so many different approaches and exercises already. Let's not even talk about how it sounds like when you switch to a clean sound. I'm very familiar with all of these frustrations because I had to deal with every single one on my own guitar journey. But since I became absolutely obsessed with guitar technique and with helping other players by discussing my discoveries and failures on YouTube, I could eliminate almost all of them in a relatively short time frame. This video is not about your typical standard and really boring chromatic exercises. This is about getting all common bad picking technique habits under control in the shortest amount of time possible. So by the end of this video, you will understand how all of today's workouts connect, and this exact intersection is the most crucial part of this video. This will finally result in building your very own fast,
Precise, clean, efficient, economic, impressive, controlled,
awesome and reliable picking technique. So before we move to today's exercises, and I can't wait to show them to you because it's not what you're probably thinking, I want to show you how I hold my pick and why I changed my grip a couple of times over the last couple of years. So first of all, unsurprisingly, I like to work with these picks, so really small picks, the chest 3 size. When I played bigger picks like that one, I sometimes had the issue that I was getting stuck between the strings and they're also kind of scratchy sometimes. So this is the difference in size, it doesn't look that dramatic.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of shred guys like to use the small jazz style picks. They always felt too small to me. I know there's plenty of people that use the bigger picks and they play just fine. Yeah, if you find that the pick is getting stuck in the strings, you could try using the smaller pick. Or it's just, you also just get used to having less pick stick through the string. So if I am using a, let's say just this size pick right there as standard size, I don't have a lot of pick sticking through the string. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a great angle on this. Let's try here. That's too close. So I'm hoping that's showing up okay. Didn't want to do that, sorry. See, I don't, like, there's very little tip of that pick showing. Like, the issue people have is when they have more like this much sticking out. And yeah, I'm definitely having to work a bit harder because I got more pick flopping around. But when I choke up on the pick, then I have much more control over it. And using like the smaller jazz style pick, I think people use that because, well, it just reduces room for error. Look at that, I need to, look how dusty that's getting. Goodness. But now, using my Bog Street pick, I actually get the 4mm now, which you have to get in their, oh, what do they call it? Their Bog Street Labs section. I just got so used to the 4. Like the 3 still feels good, but the 4mm, I don't know, just now I'm so used to it, it just feels perfect. And with this, because of the bevel, it's like makes it a lot easier to know how far you got to hit the pick into the string, which is not far at all. So just having just the tip of the pick, the very tip of the pick, brush against the string, that's really the goal there. So yeah, using a different size pick can absolutely help. White Fangs, I don't think I've heard of that kind of pick. Does it have a special design to it? Alright, so let's continue. Come on, mouse. There we go.
But to me it feels completely different. Anyways, here's my right hand, my picking hand. So just as a quick reminder concerning the pick grip, what feels very natural for me is doing that. I used to hold my pick like that, and this
I kind of do it like that right now. Let's continue though.
resulted in this kind of hole or O shape. You can see this with a lot of older material on the channel, and this was not the best pick grip that I discovered so far. So instead of holding the pick like that, which kind of feels a bit awkward, and I think I was holding it just a little bit differently with every session, so I didn't get consistent results. I'm holding it like that, and you can try this out at home easily. I'm just letting my thumb fall basically. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. And this pick grip got me the most consistent and best results so far.
So I would have liked it if he had said, Tor, hello. Ah, we got White Fang people in the group. I have never heard, maybe I should look up White Fang. What was I going to say? So I would have liked it if Bernth discussed like experimenting with perhaps different pick grip to see what works for you. One thing that he's doing that I actually advise people not to do, for a lot of them, because of thumb picking issues that I see happen, is I don't think people should start with their thumb bent like this, because too often I notice that people will begin pushing their pick the wrong direction if they start moving their thumb for picking. I've also have talked to one guy I can think of in particular. Instead of having the fist, the benefit of actually opening up the fingers, because I've noticed I can get much closer to the strings this way, and I have more like back and forth motion or pick slanting changes I can make if my hand is open. Because I notice if you have you're in a fist, well, the knuckles get in the way of the strings. So if I hold the pick the way he's doing it, that definitely feels weird. I don't like that in the slightest, but if I'm making a fist, then that makes sense. Because if I'm making a fist right now, holding it the way he was, yeah, I can see that working. But I do not do the fist. My hand is open, so holding it here, more like he used to, thumb over the last part of my finger there where the fingernail is, that works for me. So I would imagine it would be like a person-to-person thing right there. Even like with your, having your hand in a fist versus open. This is one of those things that's going to take experimentation to really find what's going to work for you. So, students say like, oh, well, this guy said this, or like, you got to hold the pick this way, you got to pick that way. It's like, yeah, well, are you getting the results that you want? If you're getting the results that you want, then stick with that. If you find that you're not getting results that you want, then yeah, experiment, try different things. Just like Bernth did. Bernth tried different things until he found what was working best for him. So And yeah, as far as like starting with your thumb bent, not a fan of that because again, if you start actually using thumb motion, if you're starting with your pick bit or your thumb bent, you'll end up picking down towards the neck and then up towards the bridge. So kind of doing this sort of thing. But if you use your wrist, you go the other direction. So if you're going to use your thumb picking or do any thumb picking, really, I don't see any benefit to starting with your thumb bent and doing it this way. None whatsoever, because eventually your wrist is going to have to start taking over to make the faster motions. So start with a flat thumb if you're going to use any thumb picking. So this way when you pick down with your thumb, it bends down towards the bridge, which is the same direction your wrist goes. And then when you straighten your thumb up, it goes up towards the neck, the same way your wrist goes. We don't want to have the pick going in two different directions at once. Because took many years of me finally realizing what was happening with a couple students as to why they could not sync up the thumb into the wrist movement and make progress. It's because the thumb was going one way and the wrist was going another. We don't want it going the opposite direction at the same time. It doesn't work. All right, correcting bad habits. Correcting the bad habits. Let's continue.
There's one bad habit that I encountered as soon as I switched to smaller picks, and I had to fight this one for quite a couple of years actually. First of all, I was closing my fist after playing like that for a while because my fingers are touching the strings and the knobs. So when I closed my hand and made a fist and switched to smaller picks, I got much better results. But I was still wondering why I got so much string noise when I was playing fast, and I almost always played with a fret rep because of that. I will try to replicate it. It would sound something like that. That sounds kind of okay, but not exactly how I wanted it to sound. My knuckles were actually rubbing against the top strings as I was playing. So it sounded something like that if you take away the picking. That doesn't sound too good. And when I had long alternate picking sessions and I worked really hard, I was all scratched up right here and bleeding, so I thought this is probably not the right way to do this. So once again, here's how it looks like when my knuckles are scratching against the top strings. It kind of sounds almost...
I suppose I should be listening to this at regular speed.
So once again, here's how it looks like when my knuckles are scratching against the top strings. It kind of sounds almost okay. You can't actually hear that extremely loud, but it already feels like I'm grinding away my fingers with a cheese grinder or something like that. So this is how I'm playing now. I just make sure that my knuckles and my fingers are not touching the other higher strings. And since I'm playing like that and not like that, I don't really need a fret rep anymore when I'm playing fast. So it was not a problem with my left hand technique, with my fretting hand technique. It was actually a problem with my picking technique. So it sounds much cleaner when I play this way and I avoid that scratching motion.
Okay. I guess what one concern I have is like, all right, so that's fine. That's good that he noticed that his knuckles were dragging across the strings all the time. But I guess this will go further into what I noticed with one student. So we go in to old Troy Grady territory. We talk about pick slanting, or as he puts it now, escape motion. Well, I still like to think of it like this, like two different ways. Like you got like the palm mute hand position where you have the pick slanted in this fashion where the point is up towards you, the butt of the pick is down. So when you pick like this, you can see the inside of your hand, and it has the pick kind of slide down this way. It's great for downstrokes because the pick is going the correct way to glide across the strings. Whereas this way, even doing the whole knuckle thing or having the fist, that's all fine and good if you're in that position where you see the back of your hand and you can't see the inside. But what I noticed with one student is if he tried to go between these two positions, damn near every time he would go like this, his knuckles would hit. So that's why I said, just open up the hand, get used to that. And one thing I find beneficial with playing like this is my pinky can really help do all kinds of muting stuff by laying across the strings. And sure, you can make up for lost picking hand muting technique with the fretting hands, but why not just make it easiest for both hands, the right and the left? Use both to its advantages. So that was poorly worded. Anyway, so just like I'm curious like how he palm mutes them, because he was holding the pick like this and he's always in that spot. Like I wonder how he palm mutes, because I don't see how you can palm mute well while holding the pick this way, and you got your knuckles, that could be a problem. Because when you palm mute, you're supposed to have this part of your hand touching the strings, which why it makes sense to me to have your hand open, so this way you get really chunky technique. Anyway, let's continue. Here we go with his first exercise on this. Oh man, I might be upsetting Bernth fanboys. Uh-oh. Oh well. Basically, there's more than one way to do this stuff. You gotta find what works best for you. If the notes sound the way that you want them to, then you're fine. But if you're having trouble getting the notes to sound the way you want them to, you're gonna have to try something else.
Alright, now that we covered this bad picking technique habit, let's get to work on exercise number 1. This is all about getting rid of that dreaded full arm motion. So step 1 is really easy, and the reason why I love to recommend this exercise is because you can't really play it like that, using your elbow or your full arm. Basically have to stay loose and you can't play it like that. So with this super simple first exercise, you work on effectively unlocking your wrist when you're playing. So instead of being cramped up with alternate picking and always kind of playing and pushing like that, you learn to let go and to relax your wrist. And that's the first secret that will make your technique much more effective and economic. So I was also guilty of using an elbow motion in the past. I almost can't do it anymore, just really completely locking up my wrist. And that also really helped me back with feeling the note values and reducing my picking attack to get a more clean signal. So especially when I'm working with a clean sound.
His fingers were open there a little bit, by the way, on his right hand.
This has really helped me with getting out more dynamics when it comes to fast picking sections than always working like that, using my full elbow. Okay, so once you feel comfortable with this beginner exercise, you can move on to the second, rhythmically a bit more challenging workout.
Well, wait a minute, like, that's not, whoops, what have I done? I mean, because I'm trying to think of how I should word all this. Because you could do what he did using your elbow. Like, of course you can. So I feel like more should have been said if the idea is to loosen up the wrist. Like, how would it feel to use the wrist versus using the elbow? Well, let's go into that. How could you actually do that? Because sometimes, yes, just using your wrist is a beneficial thing. Because you do need to learn how to do this. One guy, I can't remember who he was, but was talking about like strumming, and like the way he described it was like, pretend like your hand is wet and you're like shaking the water off. Something like that. Or like maybe like you smashed your hand with a hammer. You're like, ah, and it's like, damn it. And you're just trying to shake it out that way. So you're just doing that while holding the pick. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with using the elbow, but it really depends on what it is. Like when you get going crazy fast, yep, as many have seen on this channel, you have to use the elbow to go stupidly fast. You're not going to get that fast with just the wrist. You got to use the bigger muscles. But that's only when the really, really fast stuff kicks in. So yeah, understanding how your hand and your wrist work in order to play without the elbow at the slower speeds will make you a much more controlled player. So I do agree, yeah, learning how to use your wrist is a very important and helpful aspect of playing. Just wish he would have gone into more detail about, like, with that exercise there. It's like, well, how is that going to actually help loosen up your wrist? What are some cues in order to make that happen? So what are some cues? Like, well, the whole, like, flopping the wrist around like you're trying to shake water off the hand is a good way. Also, bend your wrist a little bit. Bend the wrist a little bit, so this way you have this kind of motion going on here. So when I'm doing that, you see the wrist is bent just a bit. And another thing, like, some people, they talk about, I'm trying to mimic how he's doing this too. I actually did a video about this. Another reason why you don't want to use fist picking. And again, if it works for you, then use it. But talk about, like, the idea of having tension in your arm when you're playing. Well, when you make a fist, aren't you usually tensing up when you make a fist? So don't make a fist, and perhaps you'll naturally relax more. Another reason why you may want to try having your fingers out. You can try not moving your arm whatsoever. Just, like, keep it on the guitar. Keep your elbow as if it's in a cast. Think like it's in a cast. See, it's not moving at all. Or at least very little. I'm not doing stuff like that, right? But as you start playing some stuff, like, your elbow will naturally want to kick in. But, like, there's a difference between allowing your elbow to work with your wrist, besides, like, keeping your wrist totally locked. That's wrist being locked. That's the wrist being loose and working with the elbow at the same time. So, anyway, let's see what exercise number 2 is.
Okay, so the second workout is a bit more advanced. You're not just working with downstroke, upstroke, and so on. We're introducing a more interesting rhythmic pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so once again the
I forgot how he had that pattern. Down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Would be nice. I don't know. I would throw in some chords too, instead of just doing string breaks, because then it will sound more interesting.
Okay, so the second workout is a bit more advanced. You're not just working with downstroke, upstroke, and so on. We're introducing a more interesting rhythmic pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so once again the focus is on staying loose and relaxed and not playing like that. So getting rid of that full arm motion and trading it for an economic and relaxed wrist motion. So once again a bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. But enough with the dead note patterns, let's move to exercise number 3.
Chords! Oh. I thought I was going to do chords. Aww.
So working on 2 note per string patterns like this was a big game changer.
Wait. So he has a C minor chord followed by the start of a D minor 7 flat 5 plus this. Oh my god, that is. What would the context be? Because we're going for C minor. Yeah, A flat. Yeah. An A flat in there, what would that be? Right there. It's just, yeah, just a D minor 7 flat 5 all the way around. Just not a shape I'm used to because I just do that, not that note up there. Okay. Alright, let's see what he has to say.
For me, because I always only focused on the 3 note per string stuff. So when you take chord shapes, cadences or arpeggios and turn them into alternate picking exercises like that, always playing.
There's that cadence word again. What do people mean when they say cadence? It seems like it's... I swear it's just like different for everybody. What is the universal damn thing for cadence? I swear it's never used the same way. People use... It's like... Am I going nuts here? What does he mean by cadence now?
2 notes per string. You get workouts that are really effective for training your wrist motion and also for your string transitioning skills, since you constantly have to hop between different strings after just 2 picking strokes. Let's raise the stakes and make this even more difficult with exercise number 4. The next step I can really recommend on your picking technique journey is keeping this approach, so working with chord shapes or arpeggios, but only playing 1 note per string while still working with alternate picking.
Definitely makes it harder. So that last exercise we had. And now this one. Yeah, it's definitely a hell of a alternate picking exercise to that sort of thing. Because it's a son of a bitch. It's a bitch of a son.
So for this 4th really challenging workout concept, you're still working with alternate picking, but now you have to play on a different string for every single note, and this will really put your string transitioning skills to the test. That is much harder than it actually looks. So before we tackle the big daily workout, I have one more exercise for you, and this one is finally based on those classic scale workouts. You're playing the A minor scale, ascending and descending, but you have to switch between playing 16th notes and 16th note triplets.
How fast or slow was that? 70? Damn it. change this. Whoops. Can I do that at 120? Oh, that's weird. No, I could probably work it up. I'm not going to do that right now. Anyway, well, at least I could do it at the 70. Anyway, yeah, going between 16th notes and 16th note triples will definitely push the, make your rhythmic playing better.
So scale workouts like this are extremely effective when it comes to developing a better picking technique, and I want you to focus on not tensing up with your picking hand as soon as we move to the faster note values. So in order to get the most out of this exercise, make sure to work with a relaxed wrist motion for both the 16th notes and for the triplets for the faster notes, and don't completely change your technique for both of these groups. By the way, you can practice all of today's exercises together with me in different tempos. As always, I made video play-alongs, backing tracks, guitar profiles and PDF tabs for patreon.com/Bernth. So those are 5 steps I can really recommend to develop a much more efficient and relaxed alternate picking technique. Number 1, work on unlocking your wrist with dead note patterns. Number 2, make sure to add rhythmic variations and challenges to that. Number 3, please don't neglect 2 note per string patterns.
Alright, so I'm going to go back here. Because I think, I understand what he means, but I don't think it's worded
And relaxed
best.
alternate picking technique. Number 1, work on unlocking your wrist with dead note patterns.
Okay, dead note. So typically when you see X's on the strings like that, it's referring to string rakes. But dead note, you could call it that, but it's usually just string rakes. But perhaps I'm wrong here. That's how I was taught. String rakes, dead notes. I don't think you have to use just dead notes or string rakes in order to practice this sort of thing. I think people would have a much more enjoyable time using chords instead of just string raking. So use chords if you want to. It's totally fine. And then he says this.
Number 2, make sure to add rhythmic variations and challenges.
So rhythmic here, like when I hear rhythmic variation, like he basically went from 16th notes to 16th notes. To me, that's not rhythmic variation unless we're talking about like how he's accentuating things or drum direction variation, because he's definitely changed the dynamics of when he hits hard versus soft, and he has changed going from down up to down up down up down up down. So there's like accent change, accent variation for sure. Rhythmically it's exactly the same. It's just all 16th notes, but the accent pattern has changed. So I felt that is worth saying in case somebody wonders, you know, I don't want somebody to listen to that and think, oh well, just by hitting something with a different accent pattern, therefore it's a different rhythm. Mathematically, no, it is not. The accent's different, though.
Challenges to that. Number 3, please don't neglect 2 note per string patterns. Chord and arpeggio shapes are perfect for working on your string transitioning skills. Number 4, also make sure to practice alternate picking with 1 note per string shapes. This is really challenging. And number 5, if you work on scale exercises, make sure to switch between different note values. This will greatly help with keeping that relaxed wrist motion for both slow and faster tempos. But where do all of these exercises line up and connect, like I teased it in the beginning? And what's this big highlight and conclusion of this video all about? So one of my biggest revelations when it comes to my own picking technique and to the technique of my students that I barely talked about on this channel is the following. One of the absolute biggest technique problems, aside from very specific topics like that locked up wrist or the string noise caused by fingers rubbing against the strings, is that a lot of players, including myself in the past, tend to develop completely different and separated playing approaches when it comes to different picking techniques. So one specific motion and angle for 2 note per string alternate picking licks, another completely separate technique for 3 note per string licks, maybe something completely different for sweep picking or for hybrid picking, and everything completely falls apart as soon as you have to play a song or just a lick that features multiple picking approaches in there. When I had issues with switching between alternate picking and sweep picking, I came up with exercises like that, for example. So as soon as my wrist was relaxed and unlocked, I didn't have that tensed up alternate picking motion followed by that smooth and fluid sweep picking motion. I could suddenly and finally combine those playing styles in my improvised takes and guitar solos. So getting my wrist under control and unlocked was one of the most important things guitar-wise that happened to me in recent memory. And one really cool full guitar workout and practice approach that I posted a while ago really helped me with that. And that's exactly what I want to share with you at the climax of this video, because I'm sure that a lot of you guys and girls missed it, since still around 70% of you are not subscribed to this channel. So you constantly keep missing tons of really helpful exercises and music theory concepts. Make sure to subscribe to join our guitar community here on YouTube to stay updated for good. So this daily quick and effective 1.5 minute workout I attached once again on Patreon features the 5 most important picking techniques. Of course, alternate picking, economy picking, legato, so hammer-ons and pull-ups / hybrid picking, hybrid picking on its own when it's applied for chord voicings, and one of my favorites, sweep picking. So by at least having one quick workout in your routine that combines multiple different picking techniques, you make sure to apply that controlled and relaxed wrist motion to multiple playing styles, and you won't feel like you're switching between completely different playing approaches for every single technique. So once you work on today's 5 steps of actually developing that relaxed wrist motion, it's time to apply it to all of those exciting techniques in the workout play-along video I recorded for you on Patreon. So I really hope that I could help you with your picking technique today with this in-depth episode. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one, leave a like in case you enjoyed it, and make sure to join us on Patreon for those cool files. As always, your reward for watching this video until the end is today's random German word, Bewerbungsgespräch. That's pretty complicated and it means job interview, so make sure to comment this word down below. Let's see if you get the spelling right. Let's confuse everybody together who didn't watch this video until the end. Thanks a lot for watching, see you in the next video, bye bye.
Okay. All right, well, conclusion here, and then I gotta hit the restroom, and then we'll check out one more video. What do I think about Mr. Bernth has to say there? The biggest things was like, I wish he had mentioned it's important to find what pick grip works best for you. If the notes you are producing come out the way you want them to sound, then you're fine. Again, I do not use the closed hand as he does. I keep my fingers open, and that works very well for me. Clearly, keeping his hand closed works well for him. So you got to try both ways to see what works for you. I would have liked to see chords, power chords. You know, why not? Metal-based, right? So you want to use power chords instead of the whole dead note thing or string rake thing when you're working on unlocking that right hand or your strumming hand if you're a left-handed player. What benefits could there be to just doing the string raking? You don't have to worry about the fretting hand anymore. You just hold down some dead notes and rickety. So then you can just focus on the right hand itself. So once you get used to just get that loose motion in your wrist with the string rakes, then perhaps I'll go to some chords instead of going from dead notes of 3 strings straight into 2 notes per string picking. Feel like there's a lot of gaps missed in that, and that could really trip people up. I feel like that's way too big of a jump for most people. So having some additional steps in there I think would have been more beneficial for everybody. But overall, the message of getting the wrist looser instead of being really rigid, absolutely agree with that. Let's see. And really, like, anything that you play can be turned into an exercise to help you be better at picking. If you're picking something, and as you work on the thing you're picking, if it improves your picking, you got an exercise that works well for you. Anything can be turned into an exercise. Every single thing you play can technically be an exercise. So it's kind of hard to say, like, you know, make everything like, oh, this is a specific picking exercise. It can be an exercise that anyway, I'm about to go off on a tangent. All right, so that's it for this video here. I need to hit the restroom, and then we're going to watch one more thing. Hello, Daniel. Good to see you on. So yeah, that video. We're definitely going to get that one edited to a shorter thing and put it up. Oh boy, I'm going to have several, maybe not several, I don't know. I'd imagine I've rustled some feathers on that one. Oh well. All right, so I'll be right back. We're going to check out one more video, I'd imagine. I highly doubt two, but at least one more. 1 second. All right, I am back in the room. Camera's back on. That is turned off. Okay. What are we going to watch next? What a lovely face to end on. He's staring into our souls. Okay, so I'm going to remove that one from the watch later. All right, no, let's see. 6 worst guitar technique mistakes and how to fix them. All right, we're getting in. Well, yeah, why not? Let's get another Bernth video going. Ooh. All right, let me add this to the stream's information. The second Bernth video. All right, save that. Da-da-dum. Okay. You know, back to the whole Tom Hess thing. You know, one thing I also like try to keep in mind while doing this whole reaction thing is to not come across as a complete asshole, but fuck it. It just feels like a lot of what Mr. Hess, apparently calling him Mr. Hess, I have learned this is not a nice thing. He demands on being called Tom Hess, not Mr. Hess, which is something that Levi Clay brought to light. But it just feels like a lot of what he says, like in that video that we looked at the beginning of the stream, and other things that I've learned about him, is he like says shit just to confuse the fuck out of you. but also tries to sound really smart at the same time to keep your ass coming back. My goal in teaching is to make shit as clear as possible so you can learn as fast as possible. Basically, my goal is to get you to not be my student as fast as I can, because I want to give you all the information you need to do what you're trying to do. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen that fast. It's like if you actually go through everything I have to offer, it's going to take many years, like 3, 4, 5 years on average. Anyway, Tom Hess. Lordy Lord. All right, next Bernth video. Okay, disclaimer time again. So this makes it easier to put in the editing, so I gotta say it again. All right, this is the first time I am watching this video. I do recognize Bernth as a fantastic player. He's very, very skilled, and he's got a lot of good information to share. So whenever I do one of these reaction videos, response things, it is never with the intent to tear anything down or anybody down. We're just going to see, do we agree? Is there any info I can add that you may find beneficial or helpful? And if we disagree on something, I will explain why. So here we go. This video is called The 6 Worst Guitar Technique Mistakes and 6 Exercises to Fix Them. So the worst. There are none worse than this. So, yes, one of those titles, like the worst. Like, is it the worst? I don't know. I get it. We got to use clickbaity titles, but man, it always bugs me when I see titles that are just like, this is the best, this is the worst. And again, you could say, well, yeah, but you used the title said guitar finger exercise guaranteed to make you faster. I still believe it will, as long as you can't play it at first. But anyway. Here we go.
Let's talk about guitar technique today. I'd like to talk about the top 6 worst guitar technique mistakes that I encountered both with my own playing and with my students so far. Eliminating those roadblocks will greatly help you out on your guitar journey. And in today's video, I'd like to show you some very effective exercises that will help you with overcoming them as fast as possible. Let's do this.
Oh yes, another part of the disclaimer. Is this coattail writing? Absolutely. And if this is your first time watching one of my videos, it worked, didn't it? Anyway.
So first of all, yes, technique is not everything, and there are many roads to success when it comes to playing the music that you love. But once I corrected those right and left-hand technique mistakes myself, my progress basically skyrocketed. It's much easier to achieve your personal guitar goals when you're not constantly fighting your hands and your fingers. The first topic I'd like to address today is not using your left-hand thumb correctly. As I'm quite sure you know already, your hands are built to grab things, and your thumb is basically the most important tool for that. It gives you the optimal support for your left-hand fingers when it comes to guitar playing, and amongst many other things, it will help you with building a very efficient legato technique, for example. But all of that won't be possible if you're playing like this, for example.
His thumb is not behind the neck. You see where it is? I bet he's got to say something that I talk about, that my teacher told me. Let's see.
This is actually really hard to do. As you can see, I didn't use my thumb at all. It's right here. I've actually seen this way of playing with some beginner students in the past, and once this big mistake was corrected, it was obviously much easier for them to play. One less severe and actually quite divisive topic is if your thumb is allowed to stick out from behind the neck like that.
The answer is yes, but it also depends on what you're playing. It can be fantastic for muting that low E string when it comes to playing, let's say, pedal point riffs. So, stuff like that. Yeah, thumb over the top, great idea. It's great for muting the low E string when you're playing power chords up here. It's great for doing stuff like that, where you're going to string rake up into a bend. So there's definitely some good use for the thumb being over the top. Also, just playing something like an A minor, C major, D minor, thumb over the top, very, very useful for muting things you don't want to have ring out. You can even use it to play chords. Let's say like, what would be a good example? You can actually do, yeah, like an F sus2. I should change it to this. So if you can actually get your thumb on that F note there, you can play an F sus2 with all 6 strings. So anyway, continuing, let's see what he says.
That when you're playing. Or if it always should be positioned behind your fingers to support them.
Depends on the riff. I bet he's going to say something like that.
So you definitely need the support of your thumb behind your fingers for fast and technical playing like that. But for me it's perfectly fine to focus less on perfect technique and more on the sound when it comes to string bending and vibrato. In my experience, you can't get that really expressive and emotional sound if you just work with your thumb behind the neck all the time. It also works, but it sounds and feels completely different. So I personally find myself switching between those two different styles. I place my thumb in the area around my middle finger for the fast, crazy and shreddy stuff. And it's okay for me to neglect that kind of perfect technique mindset when it comes to that kind of expressive stuff. Now here's an exercise for you that will really help you with developing that supporting thumb for your left-hand fingers.
Very similar to the exercise I mentioned earlier, the one titled Finger Exercise Guaranteed to Make You Faster Guitar or something like that. It was very similar to the exercise my teacher gave me there. Yeah, like not lifting your fingers. Don't lift your fingers from the fretboard. Let's see if he goes into more detail with that.
By the way, you can download the tabs, get the profiles, practice backing tracks and all the other files for all the upcoming exercises on patreon.com/Bernth. I upload these really helpful files for every single video.
I'm guessing he doesn't. So let's explain what he's talking about there. So not lifting your fingers off the fretboard. Turn this off. All right, here we go. So he did it like that. But hang on, let me rewatch that. Okay, so he's skipping strings there. Got it. Whew, yeah, that's a funky one. So he's going first, third, second, fourth. So you see he's got all 4 fingers down at the same time. And then you only move the one finger you have to in order to play the next note. So he's skipping strings, going from the E to the D string here. So as far as this is training your thumb to stay down behind here, I mean, I guess, well, but it really teaches you to keep your fingers on the tips as much as possible, and helps keep your fingers close to the fretboard. So that's what I was taught, just the old-fashioned chromatic thing here, where you move one finger at a time, and that really helped teach my fingers to stay close to the fretboard. His version here just adds a whole other element of, god damn, that's a bitch. Clearly something I have not worked on. Whew. So yeah, that's how you would approach that exercise there. I know he's going up on higher frets, but if you want to do what he's doing and you kind of weren't following that, because that did go by pretty quick. Again, you start with his first finger, he puts his ring finger down. Now both of these fingers are down. Then the middle goes down on the A string, 6th fret. And so now you got 3 fingers down. Then the pinky goes down, 8th fret of the A string. Now you got 4 fingers. When you go to the 5th fret of the D string, only your index finger comes off the guitar and then back down. And then your ring finger's the only one that moves. Then your middle's the only one that moves. Then your pinky's the only one that moves. And so on. So if you notice you got 2 fingers not on the guitar, as you go through the exercise, you goofed up. You gotta get those fingers back down and only move one at a time. Only move the one you have to in order to produce the next note.
Video that I post here on YouTube. So you definitely want to make sure to join us over there if you want to make the most amount of progress in the shortest amount of time possible. Let's move to the next topic now. So this is obviously all about picking technique, and it was one of my personal biggest roadblocks. If you're working with your entire arm when you're picking and you completely lock up your wrist, you will encounter multiple problems. You will have issues with mastering clean string transitions. You won't really be able to feel the individual notes that you're playing or the subdivisions when things get faster. And of course, it will also be close to impossible to work with interesting dynamics if this is your default motion. It might feel like a shortcut to faster tempos in the beginning because it's easier to gain momentum when you rely on brute force. But it sounds quite terrible, and I'm already a bit exhausted and I'm beginning to sweat. I obviously got much better and more controlled results as soon as I started working with my wrist for slower tempos and with a mix of my arm and wrist for the really fast and crazy stuff.
I like how he said that. He uses a mix of wrist and arm for the crazier stuff. And yeah, like you don't want to use the bigger muscles for the slow things. Like I remember a student asked me years ago, it's like, well, if using your arm is how you play your fastest, shouldn't you always be using your arm? Like, well, no, because you don't sprint the same way you walk. It's 2 different techniques. You got slow picking technique and you got fast picking technique. So you want to use the smaller, easier to control for like the fine motions. You know, use the smaller muscles for the slower stuff for sure. And only use the bigger muscles for the faster speeds only when necessary. Try and keep the bigger muscles out of it as much as you can, but when they start to creep in order to produce the speed you need to play the stuff you want, then let it happen. But try to resist it for a while. Because like I see some people like at 120 beats per minute with 16th notes, they're already like trying to do this sort of thing. And yeah, that's too early. That's too early. I mean, at least wait till like 160, I think, before you really start having to use the elbow to help out.
But I never lock up my wrist completely and use a full arm motion like that. I don't think that this will get you the results that you're looking for. In case you still have some work to do when it comes to unlocking and using your wrist for faster tempos, I have some really cool exercises for you. Make sure to work with these really cool rhythm exercises in your next practice routine.
He likes them dead notes. Alright, let's check out this exercise he's got here. What is that chord? Was he just doing those 3 notes? is hitting that note. I wonder why I didn't just keep the alternate picking going the whole time. Click.
So aside from being really effective exercises, they are also really fun to play. So aside from being really effective exercises, they are also really fun to play. I actually shared these workouts a couple of months ago already, and I'm quite sure that a lot of you guys and girls missed that. If that's the case, make sure to subscribe.
Let's try that in a more metal fashion. Nothing wrong with playing jazzier chords, but you know, why not do it in a more metal way? So taking that rhythm he's got there, let's make that a little bit bigger. Steam there. Down picking that fast is tough. All right, so there's a metal version of that rhythm right there. Let's get to the other one. So that's arms getting tired. So this one is basically quite the rhythm anymore. I'll just stick to the rhythm itself. There we go. Metal fight it.
Time for the next topic. So this is also something I personally struggled with for quite a long time. It actually took quite a while for me to realize that it's difficult for me to stretch because of the way that I'm angling my hands when I'm playing, and not because of the size of my hands or fingers. So I'm talking about really extreme angles like that, for example, or like that really stands in the way of stretching and of using your fingers effectively. A lot of my students complained that their fingers are not long enough or that their hands are not big enough to make certain stretches and to play certain shapes. And
Yep, I hear that one often too. Nobody has the right hand size, I swear. It's my hands are too small, my hands are too big, fingers are too long, fingers are too short. It's like, yeah, you just need to learn how to use your fingers.
turned out that it was actually their technique and those extreme angles that prevented them from covering more ground on the fretboard like that, for example. When I was playing that classic 2-note per string pentatonic shape in the beginning, my hand always looked like that, and that made it impossible for me to stretch farther than that. So that's the maximum stretching that I can do right now. And in order to extend this shape to a 3-note per string pentatonic shape, I would actually have to stretch this far. And now that I position my hand like that, it's actually easy to do that. If I would position my hand like that, I really couldn't make that stretch. I can't stretch farther than that.
Yeah, and that has to do with the whole thumb placement thing that he talked about earlier. If you have your thumb over the top of the guitar like that, you're not going to be able to hit the stretches. If you have your thumb to the left of your index finger here like that, you're not going to be able to hit those stretches. So you watch what happens with my fingers as I move my thumb towards the headstock here. Like they want to collapse like that, especially watch the pinky. See how the pinky does that just to stay put? But when your thumb is in the center of your hand, like behind like your middle and ring finger, then you can hit those stretches a lot better. Much, much better. Because if I was to have my thumb over here, like I can't stretch from the 1st to the 5th fret anymore because my thumb's over here. But as soon as I get it in the middle, now I can hit that stretch. So yeah, get your thumb in the middle of your hand back there behind like your 2nd or 3rd finger. Usually like the middle finger is a good place to aim for. And it really helps. Really helps get those stretches better.
Here's a great exercise for you in case you want to improve your flexibility and the angle of your left hand.
Of course, we got to see if I can do that. I don't practice 4-note per string stuff at all. Shit. Well, hey, that's what makes this whole stream thing fun, right? I try some of this stuff out. It looks like I'm going to be, in order to finish this video, I'm going to have to go past 4 o'clock. Oh well. Metronome, here we go. God, 200 beats per minute. I don't know about this. And I really don't feel like working up in 5s right now. I don't have the time for that. I'm gonna do something. Don't do this at home, kids. I'm gonna cheat my way through this. Cheat. I don't know if it's gonna work out well. I'm just gonna do a very quick jump up here. Just try and get my fingers used to it enough. I don't expect to get 200, but let's just see. Let me see this real quick. So Oh god, this is not going to go well. Those are the notes. I swear it sounds like he's lower than mine. He must be tuned down. Alright. That ain't gonna happen today. Fuck it. I'm out. Nope, I cannot do that. I cannot play that exercise right now. I am so not used to doing four notes per string. 3 note, yes. 4 note, no.
The next topic also concerns your left hand, and this one is all about finger positioning. So first of all, you want to make sure to position your finger in this area of each fret to make the notes ring out nicely. Watch what happens when I move farther back. That doesn't sound too good. So generally your notes will sound best when you position your finger close to the end of each fret. But what might be actually more important than that is the angle in which your finger comes in contact with the string and with the fretboard. A huge progress killer is what I like to call flat fingers. So if your fingers are not curled like that, they might block the next string. And that of course will make it impossible to play really cool and interesting chord shapes because you're constantly blocking the strings with your fingers. And amongst many other topics, you also won't be able to develop an efficient hammer-on and pull-off motion because you need that nice snapping motion in order to do that. So effectively working with hammer-ons, pull-offs and tapping won't really work with that flat finger approach. So make sure to focus on finger positioning and developing that nice curl in your practice routine. This is the perfect and really famous exercise for that.
Yeah, it's the one we looked at earlier. He did like the harder version, or it was harder for me earlier because... Wait, was it this video or the other video? I think it was this one. But yeah, this is the one I was taught. It really does teach you to keep your fingers on the tips. Really make sure you have to have your fingers like damn near perfect in order to make sure that you get this thing right. So yeah, this one I know. This is one I was taught that was unbelievably hard the first time I did it. It felt like I slammed into a brick wall. I was like, I couldn't play it worth a damn.
Now let's talk about one of the biggest cliches when it comes to technical players, emotion and feel in the form of vibrato and string bending. Of course, it's extremely important to focus on hitting the right pitches with your string bending licks, and it's a very common stereotype that technical and fast players can't really do that because they don't work on it in their practice routines. So please help me with proving the world wrong with this by including this in your practice sessions. A very simple exercise that you can do in order to improve that is just playing those 2 individual pitches before you're bending the lower one to the higher one. So that way you can easily...
Yep, very good idea, very good thing. I do the same stuff with students when we get to bends. Hey Tor, if you're on, you remember doing that? So yeah, it's a perfect thing to do. Hit the note you're going to bend to, and then bend to it. Really train the ear that way.
Check if you're hitting the correct pitches with your bendings. Of course, it also really helps to practice this to a backing track because you will immediately hear...
Agree with that too. Practicing your bends to a backing track, fantastic idea. I have recommended students do that as well. So 100% agree. Because if you're doing it to a backing track and you're bending strings, if your ear is good enough to tell if it's, you know, a note that fits or not, hopefully you can tell. Like if it sounds really sour when you bend the note, you probably bent it too low or too far.
If you're your bendings are out of tune. The same goes for vibrato. It's very common to see very excessive vibrato or barely audible vibrato and not really different dynamic levels in between. And that makes it impossible or very hard to articulate your playing accordingly to the music that you're playing over. So this probably won't be the right level of intensity for every single situation. That kind of expressive rock vibrato is awesome, of course, but it probably won't be the right choice for an acoustic guitar, ballad, or anything like that. So please also make sure to focus on string bending and vibrato in your practice routines. Those are actually the perfect topics to focus on when it comes to your daily improvisation sessions. Now let's move to the last topic, probably one of the most important ones, hand synchronization. If you're not familiar with this topic yet, this is all about syncing up every single picking stroke of your right hand with the correct notes that your left hand is playing. To give you a bad example, it's very common to see stuff like that. So here I was obviously just picking kind of fast with my right hand, and I was trying to match that movement with my left hand, and I was hoping that it would align somehow. And it also didn't help that I was actually not playing a scale at all, I was just playing random notes. So this might fool an inexperienced listener, but you won't get away with it forever. I learned that the hard way at my first professional touring and live job when the drummer called me out and said that I wasn't really playing any actual note values. So I wasn't playing 16th notes or 16th note triplets, I wasn't really locking in with the band at all, I was just going as fast as I could. And now there's pretty much nothing more satisfying for me than hearing perfectly synchronized hands when it comes to fast licks, and when the note spacing is also accurate. Here's the perfect exercise for you in case you want to work more on your hand synchronization skills.
Slower and faster is coming now because YouTube allows it.
Your hand synchronization skills.
So he's going 1E and a 2E and... He's doing 7 and then... to the wrong key. How fast is this normal? Oh boy. I should be able to do this one okay.
I hope that you had a lot of fun.
Let's try something here. So we start. Let's try it. Let's try a thing. Ready? I'm not. I'm scared. I'm scared.
Here's the perfect exercise for you in case you want to work more on your hand synchronization skills. I hope that you had a
harmony. Okay, he said that's the perfect exercise for hand synchronization. Is it? I mean, perfect. Describe perfect. I know, I'm being nitpicky. I'm being an ass. I'm being a big old bully. Is it a good exercise for it? Sure. If, I mean, anything, kind of like I said earlier today in this stream, like anything that helps you improve your hand synchronization because your left hand and your right hand move at the same time. You don't even have to be moving to new frets every single pick stroke. Anything can be used to improve your hand synchronization. All the other exercises that he demonstrated today in this or in his video, like just the chromatic things, that works on hand synchronization too. Everything can work on hand synchronization. So what he showed here is a good one. And for those who didn't know what the hell's going on, he's basically going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So just going up notes of your basic 7 or your 3-note per string scale shapes in the key of C. So start with that C Ionian shape. Just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then back a note. And then starting on the A string within that same shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back a note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down. Da, 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 da. And then going the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anyway, just like the other rhythm, we can cut all that stuff out. My editor of me just going da 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 da. Anyway, shit. Oh, okay. Shut up. Get back to the video. We're past time here.
A lot of fun checking out these common technique mistakes with me today. And as always, I hope that I could help you out on your personal guitar journey. Don't forget to download your tabs, guitar profiles, backing tracks, and all the other files for the YouTube lessons on patreon.com/Bernth by joining our community over there today. Also, make sure to subscribe so that you never miss another video again. Leave a like in case you learned something new today, and I will hopefully see you again very, very soon. All the best and have a lot of fun practicing until then.
All right, there we go. Lots of stuff today. 4 videos looked at. These last 2 Bernth ones, we're going to edit those down into easier or faster watching things. I don't know, easier to watch, edited down ones. All right. So yeah, lots of things. So most likely I will be streaming again, same time next week. Anything else here? I know we didn't ask for comments or anything, but anyone's got any questions, whatnot, we could take one question here. But after that, I gotta go. It's time to eat again. It looks like what the live stream is showing is like, what, 10 seconds behind what really happens in real life right now. All right, I'm guessing not. All right, well, thank you to everyone who came in for the stream, who watches the archive thing. Thank you very much. We will be on again next week, most likely. And I will always do my best to put like an alert, you know, a notice like it's a scheduled stream is going to happen. So, yeah, like I said, if anyone has any videos they want me to check out, let me know. we'll do that. I think that about covers it. All right, everyone. Thank you. This stream is